So, welcome to the first episode of our podcast. I'm really excited to have you here. And today we have a guest whose story is nothing short of inspirational. From being on the brink of death at 21 to achieving health and wealth freedom at 27, he's the mastermind behind $100 million companies and generated more than 100 million unique views. And he's a successful solopreneur who has founded and sold 3 businesses. He's on a mission to help you find your purpose, build your brand, and most importantly, help you elevate your physical, mental, and spiritual health. So buckle up because we are diving deep today with William. Yeah, so welcome to the podcast. So let's dive in straight away. I want to know about your journey from like 21 to 5 years later, how you overcame like rock bottom and go like straight into success like 5 years later.
Yeah, great question. So it really has to start when I was maybe 9 years old. There was a kind of a traumatic event that happened in my childhood that led me down this path of, addiction and partying and kind of trying to cover up that trauma with external things. And that ultimately led to me becoming an addict. And at 21, my life was pretty much in shambles. In terms of my mental health, it was completely down the drain. I was suicidal and had several attempts, but no, actual successes, thank God. Um, but it got to a point where I had really no money. I was completely in this place of darkness where I felt like there was no way out. And so, luckily, what happened was, so when I was at my absolute worst, I was in my bathtub in the darkness with a razor in hand, ready to kind of, you know, finish the job, so to speak. At that deep, dark moment, and I thank God for this. I thank the universe for bringing me this voice, and it was like it felt almost like a glowing, warm voice that through this darkness there was this one little sliver of hope, and it came to me and it said, if you're going to end your life, you might as well see how far you can go. Like if this reality that you're living in is just some big game and you can exit and you're thinking of doing that now, well, you might as well play this game to the very end. And it said, no matter what you do, you always have the choice to leave the game. And that thought like completely snapped me out of that. And it was like a crazy thing. Like I got out of the bathtub, I turned the lights on, looked myself in the mirror, and in that moment I made that decision like I have to turn my life around. I don't know if it was like my ancestors, or I don't know if it was God or the universe, like who it was that brought me that sliver of hope, but that completely changed everything. I looked at myself in the mirror and looked at my lifeless eyes and just made that decision of today's the day I change. And so from there it was really about how do I get rid of these addictions. That was the first thing. And drug addiction is no joke. I come from being a Korean. uh, it, there's a bit of a taboo and a stigma behind like talking about mental health and talking about these kind of things in the community, in the culture. And so I really had to figure these things out myself, and there was no real answer except just trying a lot of different things. And so like I kind of liken the getting rid of the addictions almost like a bad breakup. So when you have a breakup, you kind of put all these things in a box that remind you of the breakup, and you just like throw it out or you burn it, right? Like, so I gathered everything that reminded me or like would trigger this like want of to do, to give into the addiction. So I gathered everything in a box and I literally did the same thing. I chucked it in the bin. I, deleted all the numbers of all the people that I'd associated with, with doing the activity, and all the dealers and everything like that. Had to kind of delete them from my life essentially. So the first step really was to discover a clean slate. And that was really where it all began. And one of the things that really helped me in that process of, so once you get rid of the source that provided you with the dopamine and that high, it's really a difficult process because you're trying to normalize your body back to like without, that addiction. And so luckily I discovered at that time, I think it was who was it? It was just like some random YouTuber that was talking about. This was very early on, before it was like a big thing, but cold showers. And so I started to take cold showers, and ironically, it's like I was in so much pain from the withdrawal. I gave myself more pain, but it really helped. And what it really did was it allowed me to semi replace that negative addiction with like a low cost solution that I didn't have to rely on any, you know, medication, or I didn't have to go to, a psychiatrist. It's like I could force myself and put myself in a situation where I took those cold showers and got the benefits. And so I started that as my very first habit. And I discovered that the process of doing that kind of made me realize a couple things. The reason I was addicted was I was running away from pain. And so I kept using these external things to stop the feeling of like sadness and the feeling of like anger. To run away from that, I had to rely on the drugs, right? And so what I realized was taking the cold shower, the pain that I felt up front, because taking a cold shower is extremely painful, right? The pain that I felt up front was necessary for me to feel the good outcomes and the freedom on the other side. And so the cold shower taught me, oh, I actually need to face the pain to grow and to actually get positive benefits. It's the other way around, right? You do drugs, you take the easy way out, you get all the negative benefits, right? I mean, all the negative outcomes, but you do the hard things first, and then you get all the good things. So taking cold showers completely changed my mindset around what it means to, you know, uh, bring on habits and face pain. So that was the first step outside of that addiction. And so, with that habit in mind, I started to then think about what are the other things that I've been running away from? What are the things that I haven't been facing? So, things like I'd been very like closed off in terms of like expressing my emotions, talking to people in depth, things like that. And so I started to tackle those things and started to open myself up as a person and really discover, other people that, really feel the same kind of pain and, being able to relate to other people as well, like just opening up in that way. And so I talk about four different pillars of freedom when I talk about, reaching freedom: financial, physical, mental, and spiritual. And so I'm happy to dive into each of these because they all have their own kind of trajectories and streams. But I'd say, the basis of that growth over those 5 years and reaching those freedoms was facing pain head on and developing the right habits. And so the daily wins would compound over time and lead to that success. Those would be the two takeaways from that. But yeah, happy to dive deeper into those four pillars.
Yeah, no, uh, I think that's an amazing story around like how fast can someone change when faced with like a difficult decision, you know?
Definitely.
Like you could have just like taken the other route and we wouldn't be having this conversation today. And then instead you chose to like this is like so amazing, man. Like I
Thanks,
think
man.
what you said about uh facing what is difficult and like going all in into that and not giving into like the easy way. It's funny because how how is your relationship with it now? Because like now you are successful. Do you feel like it's still the hard path? Do you still feel like the work is very hard, or like it kind of rubs on you and now you want to do the work?
That's a great question. I'd definitely say in the beginning it was a lot harder, especially when your mindset is not. I like to kind of see it as your brain is just this supercomputer, right? And you're able to install good software and viruses. So what I mean by that is when you have negative habits, those become the viruses in your mind, right? And they corrupt your mind. Everything's hard. Everything's like you're not bothered to do things, and it's just like a bad state of being. And your computer slows down, and eventually it breaks down. But what the positive habits become are the positive softwares that help accelerate and improve you as a person. And the more good software that you install, the faster your processes become, the more like high performance you become. So it kind of starts compounding. So in the beginning, it was definitely very, very hard. And I quit, to be honest with you, quit many times. And, I was like, I can't do this. Like, almost went back, and I did relapse a few times as well. So it's not just like I quit cold turkey and that was it. It's like I had to go through that same process and learn those lessons to be like, okay, this is the right way to go. And so definitely the beginning is painful. A book that really changed my life. It's international bestseller. A lot of people uh, have changed their lives with it. Have you heard of Atomic Habits by James Clear? It's
Yeah.
quite the popular book. Yeah, that actually really changed my life, and I felt the results from the cold showers, and then I read the book, and so it was very easy to apply, like, oh, this actually works. And I then took that same mentality with not just the cold showers, but then adding on other habits where it's like, okay, I wake up, I drink like a liter of water, I take my vitamins, I take a cold shower, or I go for a run first, and then I take a cold shower, and then after that I feel so good, so I get in like 4 hours of deep work. And you know that in the beginning is hard, but once you get past a certain point, like 30 to like 40 days, it becomes almost like, as I was mentioning before, like it becomes like a software. It's pre-programmed. You can't not function now without it. So you have to push past that point of difficulty. Then it becomes easy, and then it becomes a lifestyle that you have to do because it just feels so good to do it. And so, yeah, eventually the easy comes from the pain. So it's the same lessons.
Yeah. Uh, and like, how did you get into content? How did you start the company? How did that go?
Yeah. So are we talking about Freedom Friday and kind of what I'm doing right now? Or are we talking about the different kind of
No,
businesses
no.
that I've set up in the
On
past?
the on the beginning, like how did you start and what role did content play on it?
Mm. I mean, we can go all the way back to, my early days at the beginning of my career. So my first ever real role was digital marketing. And so this was how many years? I mean, a long time ago, let's just say. But yeah, over a decade now. So I started in digital marketing essentially when pay per clicks were like 1 cent. Like it was a wild west back when Facebook, when you had like an e-commerce, when drop shipping was like new and nobody knew about it, but the first people that got in and then got ads for like 1 cent and then became millionaires practically like overnight. It was They were printing millionaires back then. It was crazy. I'm still now, but a lot harder. But pretty much, I understood the power of what digital marketing was very, very early. And I was able to create a agency on the back of that, where I had clients, and I was doing digital marketing and creating websites for them. And that I created that experience. Like a lot of people have this struggle with their first job where they're like, I need to get experience to be able to be qualified for the first job that I want, because in the job description they want like someone who's experienced. But then how do I get that experience when I need the first job for the like it's a cycle that a lot of people struggle with. And one thing that I did, kind of, it wasn't intentional this way, but I created my own experience. So by creating a digital agency at the very cusp of this new era of digital marketing, I was able to get that experience for myself. And then I used that experience to jumpstart my career, where I got my first position in digital marketing. And so with that, working at the University of Sydney and creating content and things like that, as for a think tank within the University of Sydney, and driving website traffic like 300% with that kind of content, and leading a team of people for the newsletter. So we had a newsletter for with about 5,000 subscribers, and was creating content for that. Back then it was quite a bit of people, and yeah, it was from there. I took that experience and realization around content and organic and paid, and went to different startups where I kind of grew my career, and eventually got to a point of getting to the general manager of digital products, leading teams as head of marketing. Eventually, got down to the point where I felt like not the peak of my career, but I felt like the road to content, like using my experience and understanding how content works and how marketing works, I felt like I had reached the cap in terms of my career. So I was making good money, I was leading a team, and I'd reached this head of marketing. And so, what more is there from this point? And so, combining my life story that I kind of just very condensedly talked about, alongside now my experience of a decade of marketing, I felt like I had more value to provide to the world. And that ultimately led to me creating my own content rather than now content for other people and helping them succeed. I was like, why don't I just use my own experience to now, help myself and my story to help more people at scale? Because, I could lead a team of 5 and I'll lead a 10. I could really change their lives by making them, getting career progression and get results. But ultimately, I felt like that was a cap as well. So I wanted to have more impact. I wanted to provide more value and content. And what we're doing now is exactly the outcome of that thinking. And so my hope is my story gets out to a lot of people, and they can really relate to it, and yeah, hopefully come out the other end on the right side of that.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. And like, it's funny because you are so young, but still you have like that much experience on the field, you know? Uh, like, how do you see like content change? Like, how did content change over the
Mm.
years for you, like on the big changes or over this decade?
It's another great question. So big big change is that the last decade has been all about paid. And so everything is about, how do I create the right headline to get the right click, to get the right conversion, to get the right landing page, to get the right, everything's been about like paying for that view to get the customer in your funnel. And so that works. But after, oh, sorry, my Siri just popped open on my Mac. Paid works, right? And it has
No
worked
problem.
over the last decade, but it's saturated. It's very saturated now because early on there was no one doing it, so it was like a very easy. As I mentioned, like every click was a 1 cent, and now you're getting clicks for like dollars, which is hundreds of times more expensive than it was, and it's just getting more and more expensive because in the early days it was all about the scrappy startups, one man businesses that are trying to like utilize a minimum budget to get maximum result. But the problem now is that all these big companies are coming in with huge corporate budgets, budgets that went to TV, that went to radio, that went to all these different big money platforms, are now shifting towards social because they realize the power of it. And so it's getting super expensive to do paid. And for the entrepreneur that's coming up now, the risk is really high because you now have to pay so much to try to test products and try to get the MVP out there. You have There's so much cost associated with that. Even though social is still powerful, paid is no longer the way. And so what has shifted now is definitely we're going full back to the organic, the organic reach, where the variable is now the creative. It's no longer like hooking people. I mean, it is still hooking people with the creative, but it's about the quality of the creative, not just how much money you can get behind it. And so that really shifted with TikTok. And TikTok really brought this new era of how do I get organic reach and how do I create the most engaging content And how do I make sure that it aligns with the algorithm, which the algorithm, by the way, it's not this fancy program, it's just human behavior in code. It's about like, how do I maximize the value that I provide to these people? And so that is now the narrative. It's no longer about paid. It's all organic. It's all, podcasts. It's all about, yeah, getting in front of the right people and letting the algorithm do the work.
Yeah, and we are seeing this trend of people switching to content. Like, I think it was Alex Hormozy that said, like, in like 5 to 10 years, all those big budgets from big corporations will be on content, not on ads, because like ads kind of interrupt our day, right? Like content is something that you usually like you choose to
Mm,
watch. So I think it's a like what is your view on like content versus ads, like from a audience perspective?
yeah. Well, it's actually very, very subtle now what companies are doing. And it's very, you have to be, to your point, like you don't want to be interrupted. You want to be entertained, you want to be educated, and you want to feel emotions. These are the three pillars that content really grabs onto and is content that is consumed. And so what is happening now is that content is now becoming the ads. So what I mean by that is, and this has been happening within, a lot of like Korean dramas, a lot of like big budget TV shows where there's product placement, right? And so it's a very subtle form of that. But the products are not necessarily these big company brands anymore. So, for example, I'll give you an example. MKBHD, right? You know, the big YouTuber. Are you familiar with? He's like the biggest tech YouTuber in the world.
Yeah.
How he would sell his merchandise is very, very subtle. So he'd be talking about, hey guys, there's this new Galaxy Z Fold 5 I'm reviewing, and he talks about the phone, he reviews it, and he talks about a certain feature of the phone, which is multitasking. Like, how do you uh, use three windows at once? And in one window will be his website with his merch. And so he's now promoting, it's like an ad within the content, right? So now it feels organic, it's very subtle, it's very like smart. But the people that see it, if they are interested, they go buy it, and if they're not, who cares? Like it's now very, very, even the ads are now feeling organic. So it's an interesting time definitely right now. So uh, it's about how do you sell without selling, and this goes now, and this is not just about marketing. This is now the second layer. It's like once you get them into your quote unquote funnel or whatever your system is, and you start talking to potential clients and potential customers, even at that point you got to do the sell with no sell. And what that is, for example, on LinkedIn, and we connected on LinkedIn, right? So a lot of people try to send a big sales letter. They try to hook them with this like cheesy, like, hey, but here's my product list, and I think you'd be the right fit. Like they try to go with the sell, right? So you see a lot of in mails, you see a lot of people with that approach. The way you actually get clients. So an example of this, I've just started like taking LinkedIn seriously, maybe about a month and a bit, and I've grown to almost 4,000 followers. I've talked to hundreds of people in the DMs, talked to face clients, and converted a lot of them. And the way that it has happened, this is like the secret sauce now, is you essentially never sell. And what I mean by that is the content doesn't sell. The content is free value, right? And then you get them into something like a newsletter, which is once again even greater, in depth, more free value. And then you start talking to them in the DMs where you don't ever sell, you only keep giving free value. So, for example, my main thing is personal branding right now that I help clients with. So there's the personal branding and then the personal development. So I help people with both sides because my marketing experience is in the branding and the marketing, and then my personal life experience is in the personal development. So there's both of these lanes. And what I do in the DMs is I just talk to everyone like they're my friend. And I'm like, how can I help you? And I genuinely want to do it. So I'm in a position where I just talk to people as if I really want to know them, because I do. And I've actually gotten friends out of this process of the last month. I've people that I'm meeting with now and going to play golf with. Like, I've met incredible people. So it's just about being genuine, actually wanting to provide value, and having these real conversations with real people. And so you do that enough, and not all of them lead to anything, which is fine, because people get that value, and then their life is better because you had a chat with them, which is great. But some of them really want more, right? And then you go into one-on-one chats, and then you give them more value. And the main thing here is, I never actually mention what I provide. I don't talk about my products. I don't talk about anything. I keep providing value until the person I'm talking to is the one that asks me to talk more about my products. And so when you get that selling process to that point, it becomes the client is the person making the decision. The client is the one who's actually marketing themselves in a way, because they are the ones who've asked you, you know, for your product. And so the sell becomes automatic after that point. So and Gary Vee talked about this a long time ago in his book, Jab, 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 Right Hook. I'm not sure if you've seen that, but it's essentially that played out in like
Yep.
a full sequence. So you just provide value endlessly because it feels good, and then whatever happens happens. And the thing that happens to happen is you happen to get results. So you feel good, your clients feel good, everyone gets value, and then you ultimately make more money. So it's like everyone's winning. It's great. This is why I love social media. It's why I love digital marketing. It's why I've been in it for so long. And
It's funny because what you just talked about remind me a lot about like the difference from like ads and content, like the style that you are using to sell your product. It's much more like content than it is like ads, like buy from me, buy
yes,
from me, buy from me, uh like how is your view on like people going like full into content as like a way to sell their product? How do you distinguish between like lead attracting content and lead converting content, or do you think there is no
it's
distinction
another
between
great
them?
question. So in terms of how do you approach converting the different kind of contents, right? So there's three layers, and I just created a post about this, where essentially there's three different types of content you need to create to get a client. So the first layer at the very top is, how do they get to reach you? How do they know you, right? And the second layer is, what content will you create for them to get to like you? And then the third layer is, what content will you create for them to actually trust you? So these are different types of content, right? So the very top layer is about, how do you maximize your reach? And the problem, and this is a problem that a lot of people have, where a lot of experts talk about niche down, niche down, niche down, right? But this is not the right advice. And what it is because if you niche down, right? If you're a personal trainer who's 30 years old, who wants to help IT professionals, that's very super, super like very specific niche, right? That person has such a small audience that when they keep trying to create posts that cater to that audience only, they don't get in front of that audience because their reach is not wide enough. So there's no point creating a post that's super niche but gets like 3 views and doesn't travel. So the first layer is, how do you get people to know you? You need to stop niching down. You need to niche less. So instead of talking about personal trainers who are 30 years old that are IT professionals, you only create high performing posts that are relatable around personal fitness and training that a lot of people can get behind. So that's how people get to know you. Once that group of people becomes your followers, you then niche down from there to say, how do I get these people to like me? Right? So the content now becomes personal training, but I'm a 30-year-old, so I have personal opinions on how my health is, and you get to know me more as a person, whilst I then relate to the potential client who's also into wanting to get fit and is around the 30 years old. So then that content gets them to like you. The third layer of, how do you get them to trust you, is now when you fully niche down and you say, okay, I'm a personal trainer, I'm 30 years old, I'm targeting IT professionals. So when you get that granular, people can trust you because they know that the solution you offer is solving their specific problem. So if you start creating content in that way, where you start creating a top line funnel of maximum people, then getting it a little bit down to get people to like you by getting a little bit more niche, and then getting those people that like you to fully trust you by getting specific with the product you offer and the solution you offer. By the end of that funnel, you have conversations, you have leads, you have people becoming clients. So that's my advice with content.
Yeah. No, I think that's amazing. And like, how would you tailor that to like someone who is just starting their business? They want to do content as their main lead gen, but they don't have a budget to hire someone like you.
Yes, for sure. Like it's the thing with content, the thing with organic is there's no budget behind it. So like there's three types of content, right? Written content, audio content, and then video content. All of these things you can do. Like if you want to write, you just hop on your computer or phone, you just start typing away, you start writing. If you're good at voice, you start recording yourself. You don't even need this whole podcast studio. Like you can just uh, record yourself on your phone. There's Adobe AI that converts audio from like a normal quality to studio quality. So AI can now make you sound good. So you can create a podcast like that. There's Anchor, which is a free app that allows you to distribute. If you're good at video, you make YouTube videos and you keep posting every week. And uh, whether you edit that, and some people edit on their phone, some people edit on the computer, like use whatever you have and you can create content, right? And the variable is not about the most fancy gear, the best editing platforms, having a team of content creators. It's just about how authentic can you get and how relatable can you get with that authenticity to as many people as possible. And if you choose the medium that you love, and this is what I talk about a lot, which is with content, you have to find the lane where it doesn't feel like work, it has to feel like play. And because if it feels like work, you'll quit. Like after a couple of times, you're just like, this is not for me. I hate it. Like I know I need to do this, but I don't want to do it. So you have to find the content that feels like play because it gives you more energy than you put into it. So for me personally, that's writing. The more I write, the more enjoyment I get from doing that. So that's why I create a lot of LinkedIn posts, and I chose LinkedIn as a platform because I love writing, and it yes, it has videos, but the written content tends to perform the best. Another platform like that will be Twitter if you love writing. If you love videos, you go to TikTok, you go to YouTube. There's the platform specific to the type of content you like to create. So figure that out. What do you like? And then there's platforms to match, you know, that skill set. So that would be what I suggest.
And you said you chose like LinkedIn because you love to write, like, and I think a while back a lot of people were talking about like have a omni-channel strategy, and even now a lot of people say like, oh, do this for one channel but repurpose for every other channel. Like, how do you feel about that? And is it good? Is it not?
Mm.
And does it have like a time and a place to do something like that?
Mm.
Or do you don't like it at all?
With that, it's very nuanced. So it's not a one size fits all solution. So how I would approach that is if you're a solo creator and you don't have the time, you don't have the energy, it's not ideal for you to try to tackle 7 platforms at once because every single platform has a different audience. Number one, it has a different way you have to spread your message. It has a different way that you boost your engagement. And if you split your time 7 different platforms where you have to reply to 7 different types of people, types of messages, you're spreading yourself thin. So you can do it, but it ultimately won't give you a good ROI on the time you spend on it because it's really not giving you back more than you give in. What I would suggest though is actually in the very beginning, do an omni-channel strategy just to feel out which of these platforms you like. It's actually quite important you do that because you don't want to stick to one platform and then not realize that another platform is actually better for your message and better for the things you talk about and the audience is actually there. So what I'll suggest is for solo creators, start with all different platforms, right? Repurpose content, try different things, but you'll slowly start to see, oh, my Instagram is getting 20 likes and my TikTok is only getting 2 likes, or my LinkedIn post just got 50 likes and my YouTube video is like not getting any views. You'll start to realize from the data, okay, which platform is working and which platform is not. And so from there, you can start to narrow it down and then select the one platform that is performing the very best for you and aligns with your messaging and aligns with what you like doing. So if you get all three of those in a row, you'll just keep doing, you keep producing content because you like it. The feedback will be good. People will be engaging. You'll get more motivation because you see that your content's getting liked. And that's actually a very key point with content is if you keep posting, you get 0 likes. You're like, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. So yeah, I'm sure everyone feels this way when doing the content as well. But yeah, so do the omni-channel if you're a solo creator just to see the taste of platforms, then start to narrow down and then focus on one. Because what happens from here is once you have an audience on one platform that's big enough, you can always transfer them to another platform. Like whether or not you have a special offer for people that go from LinkedIn to Twitter. And this is what Justin Welsh did, right? So he started big on LinkedIn and then shifted over to Twitter, taking a lot of his audience. And what that did was instead of having to crawl your way up to like your first 1,000 followers, because this is the meta game with content and followers, right? It's all about the network effect. The more people that you have in your network, the more people that they have in their network. So if the people you have is small, the harder you have to work to try to get that reach. But if you have a lot of people that you already have in your follower base, it's easier to get more reach, right? So what Justin Welsh did, he took his LinkedIn base, transferred tens of thousands of them into the Twitter base. So now he's not starting from zero where he has to try to claw his way up to that amount. He starts with a big base and that the work just does itself from there. Like because this base likes and engages, from there the network effect takes over, the reach happens and the follow growth just exponentially goes up. So I would really highly recommend going that way if you're a solo creator. If you're a big business, I would recommend going fully omni-channel because you have the budget, you have the marketing team, you have the options to do that, and just your main. It depends if the company is focused on branding or if they're focused on leads. But if they're focused purely on branding, you got to be on all platforms everywhere. Just as much you have to show your face to as many people as many times on many platforms as possible. If you're trying to get leads, which is actually converting through paid. This is not, we're not talking about organic right now. We're talking about paid. I would say try every platform and the same thing, just narrow it down to the platforms that produce the highest ROI. And so, yeah, as a summary of that, it's case by case and very nuanced. But yeah, those are my two recommendations.
No, but I think you touch a lot of the nuances, and like if the audience is listening, and like I think they got like a strategy for each case, like even briefly, but I think it's a really, really good summary.
Thank you.
Uh, and what you just said, like, it's funny. Did you have like any piece of content that from all the time that you posted that impacted your audience or someone specific in some way that has like a really good story around it?
To clarify, is a piece of content that converted someone into a lead and then they felt impact and they let me know, that kind of thing? Or
Yeah,
yeah.
it can be an impact that you generated for them. It can be an impact that did on your business that like grew a lot, like some
Ah,
specific thing, or something that you thought it wasn't going to work and then it works
Mm,
like a lot?
it's a great question. So one of the posts that started to really get my growth up in terms of recently with followers. So I've tried a lot of different things on LinkedIn. I've tried, just written posts. I've tried carousels. I've tried one page images. I've tried all these different things over the last couple of weeks. And what I've found, the highest performing posts is a post that I created where it said, LinkedIn is full of noise. Here are 11 people that provide deep value. And then I was just a list of the top creators that I loved and I followed and I get inspired by and what they do as like a little tagline. And what that did was, and I'm not sure if this is how the LinkedIn algorithm works, but because I tagged every single one of them, what I am thinking happened was, their followers and it kind of showed them that post, and then from there the likes started coming in, the comments started coming in, and this was before I had pretty much any likes, and then that kicked it off and I realized, oh, okay, so LinkedIn is really all about networking. It's all about helping each other grow, and you want to do this naturally, but LinkedIn is like a place where that really really is taken to another level. It's all about positivity and like mindset and high performance, and when you share with others in other successes and others in how other people can provide you value, and like you're the middleman, so to speak, connecting these two pieces together, you get that love from the community. So that really kicked it off for me in terms of content that impacted not only my growth, but a lot of people that got to find in the comments. You'll read like, oh, like I didn't know about this person and person. Now I'm like, going to check them out. And likewise, there are a lot of comments that were like, hey, you didn't include this person on the list. How could you do that? Like, and yeah. So I found new people that I follow now. And it was just this great cycle of like social connection and value. So that was a good one for sure.
No, I think that's amazing because like you spark like the people that like that list of 11 people, they will comment because they like them. The people that don't like them will comment because they don't like them, and like you didn't include the people that they
Yeah.
love, like so you spark a, it's exactly what you said about like the content that reaches a lot of people, so you get to be known in the space.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Uh, so yeah, I think we will wrap this up. It's been amazing talking to you. Like even like I learned a lot from what we just talked about, and I thank you very much being on our
Happy to
show.
be here. Thank you for the great questions. They really opened up, the floor for this value to come out. So that's great job. So thank you for that, and thank you for inviting me. It was a great time.
Yeah.
All right, take care,
Bye,
mate.
William.
Bye.
Thanks.